Well, the name came about because long before I came to Albany, which is now almost 20 years ago, I was the assistant conductor of the Los Angeles Philharmonic. And I spent 5 years there as assistant and then associate conductor of that orchestra. And while I was there, I was acutely aware of the fact that even though this was one of the great orchestras of the world, and even though it was basically working very close to Hollywood and to the entertainment capital of the world, there was virtually at that time no connection or crossover between the orchestra and what we called the West Side, all the television people and all the movie people and all the entertainment people. And I always thought that was really sad and strange. And meanwhile, there was all this exciting stuff. This is back in the 80s. You know, Madonna was hot, and John Williams movies were hot, and Paul Simon came out with that great album, Graceland. And the Kronos Quartet was a really great kind of breakthrough new music ensemble that really did very unconventional things that at that time were considered really out there. And so I guess my idea was to create a mini orchestra, which at that point had never been done, that kind of was, you know, John Williams meets Madonna at Graceland with the Kronos Quartet expanded and explored the world of all the kinds of music that are going on in the big world and somehow connected them to the tradition of what we concert music people do. And so I went around trying to think of names for this virtual group that I had imagined but hadn't convened, and I made lists and lists and asked friends and thought Norchestra or orchestra with a different spelling, or, you know, all sorts of dopey, stupid names. But I knew that I wanted to get as far away from any, quote, classical music connotations as possible. And so on my list I had this name of it was actually a rock band that my friend David Lang, the Pulitzer Prize-winning composer, had when he was at Stanford, and it was called the Dogs of Desire. And when I showed the name to my mother, she was like, "Oh, that's a terrible name." And I decided, based on that, that was definitely the name we wanted, because it obviously had exactly the right connotation to get as far away from orchestras and the tradition as possible. And it's stuck, and I must say that our musicians here, you know, so when I came, that was one of my dreams, was to establish the group. I must say that the Albany Symphony is such a whimsical place that everybody said, sure, why not, let's give it a try. And so I think by the second year I was here, we had already established the Dogs of Desire, and it's been playing every year ever since. And it's really become a great tradition here, and also really, I think, important and wonderful influence on the new music world in America in general, in that a lot of composers have gotten and continue to get their starts with the Dogs of Desire, because we're always we're sort of trawling for the best and most interesting new composers who have a kind of pop music aesthetic. So it's quite a wonderful confluence of existing pieces and new pieces, and lots of young composers and a couple of not so young composers. But the idea is really to find exciting, interesting new voices and allow them to write pieces that are not typical, quote, classical orchestra pieces, but involve vocals and drummer and saxophones and keyboards and lots of new technology as well. So it's a real sort of, we almost think of it at the Albany Symphony as our R&D division, our research and development division, that we sort of generate new ideas of what orchestra futures might look like through the Dogs of Desire. There are a lot of you know, real dogs aficionados who come to that concert, and I must say many of them are our regular concert goers. Others don't come to the regular concerts, but they're more dogs public type people, dogs audience members. But I'm always struck and charmed by lots of, dare I say, little old ladies who are sitting in the dogs audience. And I remember one group of little old ladies told me that some kids were sitting next to them, and they said, "Thank you so much for coming to hear our music." And the little old ladies said, "This is our music too." So it's music that I hope appeals to everybody. The whole premise is that it's not for kids or for a youth cult audience, but that it's just about the present. So anybody who loves good music and loves interesting art happenings should enjoy the concerts.